will be sitting down with some senior developers and breaking down some of the most popular technical tasks out there for evaluating job seekers. These tech tasks will be scored by a number of factors: the costing for the company, the effectiveness in rating a candidate's capability, the task's fakeability, its relevance, and its popularity. This will be a really interesting series which should give a range of perspectives on the current methods of hiring within the tech industry.
In this episode, we're discussing case studies, one of the most in-depth and comprehensive types of tech tasks in the hiring process. Case studies challenge candidates to approach a real-world scenario or project, asking them to analyse, strategize, and come up with solutions that showcased both their technical skills and their problem-solving approach. Unlike standard tests, case studies provide a window into how a candidate thinks, communicates, and tackles challenges they'd actually face on the job. Today, our panel of experts will be rating case studies out of 10 on all of the different aspects. Let's see if case studies really are the ultimate measure of a job readiness or if they fall short.
With case studies, costing can be quite low. It's really thinking up the exercise beforehand. You don't need many tech tools. You don't need many licenses for things. Sometimes it can be just using whiteboards or a discussion over a Teams call. So I'd give that 9 out of 10.
I think it's quite cheap to come up with a few ideas that become the scenarios that people want to either talk about or write some code with relation to. So you can make it quite relevant, and at the same time, the costing will therefore be cheap. So I'm going to call it 6.
It takes so much to do if you're going to do it properly, because you've got to have somebody who's going to go, right, are we going to have a sample one so that everybody can look at it and go, this is what we think should be the answer. And then somebody's got to sit and look at all of those bits of code. And it takes such a long time if you're going to do a proper job. So how much time do you want to spend doing a case study? So probably about 3.
Personally, I really like case studies. I think they're very effective because you can explore more subjects rather than, can you write these 10 lines of code? Can you memorize what this function does? It could be, how do you think about things? What critical thinking skills do you have? How do you analyze and solve problems? So I'd give that 9 out of 10.
I think from this, you'll get more about the soft skills of a developer if you're actually doing this during an interview time, if you're talking with them. But if you're asking them to solve a problem, maybe not quite so much. I do think this could be a bit of a weak choice. You're really going to get some of their soft skills, but not really their hard skills of problem solving and development. So effectiveness, I can really only say 5.
One of the biggest problems is when it goes, we expect you to spend 2 hours on this. Nobody has ever spent 2 hours on it. But businesses know a big way to stop that. You could spend 3 weeks doing it. You know what I mean? You could, whatever it is, you could make it the most perfect system ever. I could spend all the time doing the tests. That's easy because it is just, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. So being as everybody is cheating because the time is, nobody's running the time. There's no way of figuring it out as to how anybody's true capabilities. Probably that 3 again.
I think case studies can be quite difficult to fake. It's often on the same call or physically in the same room, so you can't quickly spin up another screen, with a co-pilot or AI and ask the question and try and get those answers. So yeah, I think fakeability is going to be quite tough with that. I'd give that 9 out of 10.
I've been asked the same questions by different interviewers at different companies at different times. So therefore, I've had prior experience of the same questions. So in a sense, I've been able to prepare for that. So from my perspective, it's therefore fakeable. So I'm going to have to give it a lower score of 4.
The first problem is a lot of places go, please upload it to our Git. Excellent, which means that I can go on your Git and see everybody else who attempts at it. I went to one interview and it had about 200 people do it. So it's like, which one of these 200 ones do I want to copy from? But the other thing is that people have that little project they've done. They might tidy it up and then they put it on their own Git, because there's a lot of places now that want, oh, have you got a portfolio on GitHub? And they go, yes, and here are all the little projects I've done for all my various interviews. And they've usually got the company name and the question, and you just type it in and you can go and find it on GitHub. It's not a problem. I'm going to go with about 6.
Again, case studies can be done in-house. They can be created for exactly the problems they're looking to solve. So I think they can be made very, very relevant depending on the approach. Again, depending how tough they want to make them. Do they ask kind of left field questions, things that maybe not so relevant to try and catch people out, or test their other skills, not just their development skills? I would give that 8 out of 10.
Depending on the usage, you can get soft skills from this. So I would say you could get quite high relevance out of this as well, of about, I'm going to say 8.
99.9% of the time, there is no indication of what to do, what technologies, what methodologies, what language. So you sit there and you go, okay, I'm going to do this. And the feedback comes back, we don't do it that way. Or you didn't ask me to do something, you didn't give me any instructions on how to do it. So if I don't do it in the way that you want, you never told me. So you end up with a bunch of people trying to just jam in whatever they want, which completely wastes the company's time. Usually about 2.
Popularity is quite interesting with case studies, and again, after asking around, I found quite a mix with this. Some people like to have their heads down and code as a developer. Other people do like the case study and how relevant it is. I think on average, it feels like a 7 out of 10.
Certainly, I've seen this in a number of interviews a number of times over the years, but not always. So I'm going to say slightly more than average. I'm going to say 6.
The time consuming, the questions usually poorly defined, with what do you want from me? If you haven't got what technology you use, it feels like you're sitting there and you just get handed a blank check of what you want to do. So you kind of look at the task you've got and then say, oh, we want to do this in 2 hours. And you go, that's not doable in 2 hours. So do I want to spend probably all weekend doing all of this stuff? And then somebody spent an entire week doing all of this and adding all this other stuff to it. Basically, I'm at the point where if you say this task takes longer than 2 hours, I just don't do it. I mean, the other part with that is if somebody wants that much work, it does kind of feel like somebody's getting you to do the work for free. I've had that in the past where you do a bit of a technical test and then you find you'll actually put it live and they're using it for something. They just used it as a way of that cheap contractors. So anything that takes more than 2 hours just feels, you're all right. I'd go with an absolute 0.